What do you think is the greatest natural resource we all have? Try to imagine 3 things that you would consider the greatest treasure of the humankind and try to keep them in mind. And I can guarantee you that by the end of my story, you will want to modify your list. The story revolves around a very fundamental theme, the theme of evolution. This is one of the most intricate theories ever created by man. And I'm sure that you know this word from media or school. What you probably don't know is that you, me, basically all people that you know or may know, we may have stopped evolving biologically. This may sound serious to some of you, and if yes, then keep listening. If you think it's no big deal, then keep listening even further, because you will have to change your perspective. Evolution will make you think about your future. To life, evolution means change, because it constantly transforms all living beings on our planet, and it also shaped us, humans. The path to the human species, Anno Domini 2016, took about 2.8 million of years. And it was filled with evolution. It seems a lot, but it's just a heartbeat in a 4 billion year long history of our planet. And in spite of this rich evolutionary history, we rarely think of humans in terms of evolution. This is maybe because since the time the modern human was born, we haven't changed that much biologically. We basically move, breathe, and look in more or less the same ways. Of course, no major spectacular change doesn't mean a complete idleness. Evolution was present in our human species quite recently. We have the evidence. If you have enjoyed your today morning latte, thank evolution, because the ability to digest the milk sugar, lactose, arose in the adult European population quite recently, about 6,000 years ago. This is just a blink of an eye in terms of evolutionary time. This ability arose because of our long tradition of using dairy products beyond childhood. In the other parts of the world where milk drinking is not so common among adults, this ability is absent in over 95% of all adult population. Why? Well, no adults drinking milk means no need for evolution to step in, creating novel abilities. The way evolution achieves all this is ingenious and brutal at the same time. The basic mechanism of evolution, I'm sure that you also know this name, is called natural selection. It acts by removing worse and less adapted individuals from populations. It acts a bit like a sieve. If certain individuals have traits that make them a bit worse in tackling everyday challenges like fighting infections or injuries, such individuals are less likely to produce offspring and survive. Or to put things simple, evolution just kills them. Evolution is all about killing and dying. And this brutality of evolution has some important consequences. We are all programmed by our genes, just like tiny biological computers. These genes are written in our DNA, and every time we reproduce, the DNA is passed and copied to our children. This process occurs flawlessly, usually, but sometimes it introduces errors that we call mutations. And evolution is able to capture these mutations and remove these broken genes from populations. Of course, genes are not alone. They reside inside of us and all living things. So by removing broken genes, I mean exactly killing individuals that carry them. Again, killing and dying, the basic forces of evolution. This cleansing of bad mutations is more important than you would think, because actually it's a species savior. We scientists often study organisms that are much smaller than humans because they tend to evolve much faster, like fruit flies or mice. And studying such organisms, we have demonstrated that removing evolutionary forces from species leads to their deterioration. Species, to put things simple, species that do not evolve, that lack this cleansing power of evolution, just degenerate. Species that do not evolve die. It's that simple. And still, we are still here, we humans. We feel quite comfortable, safe and happy. We enjoy the benefits of our developed societies, the benefits of watching the next TED Talk. We feel quite evolved already, right? I can almost hear some of you saying, come on, if evolution is really has really stopped for humans, is it really that serious? And after all, is there any evidence that evolution really has stopped for our species? You could be right about one thing. This evolutionary breakdown of our species may be so recent that we probably don't have enough evidence and enough data to show it convincingly. However, what we do have is some indirect evidence. Consider these numbers. Let's travel back in time. In the 19th century, many people in Europe, those that could afford it, lived in comfortable and safe cities. But over 80% of the European population lived in rural and suburban areas where death and diseases were parts of everyday life. Natural selection raged in these societies that are not so distant in time. 3 years ago, a team of German biologists looked through parish books and records of 3 small fishing villages in Finland. And what they have discovered was that by the end of the 18th century, the expected human lifespan was much shorter than today. Almost half of the people died before the age of 15 in these not-so-recent human populations. And even surviving was not a guarantee of an equal contribution to future generations, because only 20% of the survivors got married and had children. Even being married did not mean a contribution to evolution, because, for example, men having multiple sexual partners had on average more kids than more faithful males. So this was the time where we had unconstrained sex, we had death from diseases, we had shorter lifespans, everything that evolution loves and actually needs to work properly. I think no one would deny this was not the reality that we would like to live in today. And this is exactly the point. From the very beginning of our kind, we cherished life. We tried to protect it by all means. Just like me, standing here in this red dot, we closed ourselves in safety bubbles. For example, medicine. This is one of those safety bubbles. We invented it exactly to counter the effects of natural selection. Medicine is necessary to remove the sieve of evolution. By doing so, we've been shielding our individual bodies and protecting our individual lives. Our cultural evolution created yet another bubble, enforcing monogamy as the major morally acceptable mating system, which has suppressed our inner mate choice system designed and exploited by evolution. What I'm going to say may be a little bit controversial, but I see all these actions as a form of a species-wide egoism. All these safety bubbles, they serve the purposes of single humans. Monogamy, it's just about making us safer. It replaces biological urges with well-behaved manners. Medicine, it gives us comfort, it removes suffering. Medicine is just about making us happier. Everything we do, every technology we develop, it's just because we want to feel happy. Us, single us. I don't want to say that medicine is evil. No one, I'm sure, would sacrifice their life for the evolutionary advancement of the entire species. But you have to remember that medicine is all about single humans, those that are the weakest and the most vulnerable. Medicine doesn't care for the whole of our species. It doesn't see our evolutionary future and past. It just cures us here and now. And paradoxically, this may be dangerous because it removes evolution from our biology. So what can happen? Without evolution, our genes will degenerate. They will accumulate broken versions of themselves, just like junk in trash bins. We will start deteriorating. Once we carry too many mutations, they will start harming us. They will shut down our fecundity. They will make us have weaker children. Mutations can break the defenses of our bodies, letting in bacteria and fungi that, as we speak, evolve new ways of fighting new antibiotics. In the long run, mutations may even prevent us from adapting to our quickly changing environments. Remember, evolution means change, not only for different living organisms, but also for us. No evolution means no change, no adaptation. This is quite serious, I think, and you're all probably wondering if we can do anything to prevent this biological disaster. Changing the future of the human species may seem a grand task, but what if I told you that the only thing you have to do today is just to change your perspective, to go outside of your safety bubble and see the grand picture of evolution? You see, I told you that natural selection has been switched off in our current medical world, but not everywhere. You see, there are countries, like many African countries, for example, where over 90% of all death is caused by infections, like malaria, tuberculosis, water poisonings. These are the countries where natural selection is still very active. In 2013, in Africa, every 60 seconds, 5 children under the age of 5 had died. In most central and southern African countries, people don't live long enough to even celebrate their 55th birthday. This is a disastrous situation, one that has to be fought by all means, but this is also an opportunity. What I mean, these populations, these poorer nations, may be thought of as sources of much healthier genes, constantly selected and protected by evolution. Western societies, at some point, will have to face the future of mixing of genes of different human populations. This won't be easy. Our view of poorer nations is too often associated with intolerance and prejudice. We can be hostile to new cultures. We may not understand distant traditions and religions. But this shielding of ourselves and this protection of our status quo is not the best choice that we can make. This is particularly clearly visible today when Europe tries to deal with the greatest immigration crisis it has ever faced. I can't imagine a better moment to change our perspective. My advice to you is very simple. Try to be tolerant. Avoid being judgmental. Avoid judging other people based on their cultural origins. Try to teach your children that having a dark skin is something perfectly normal. Remember, today it's just about more tolerance, but in the future, such attitude may help us save our species. Today, I'm not responsible not only for my here and now. It's not only my lifespan that matters. At the beginning of my talk, I asked you about the most precious natural resources. I'm sure that you all have your choices. But I think we may have entered the age when, for humans, our diversity and our evolutionary potential are our greatest natural resource. Thank you.